Hey, it's Dan, and welcome to Unified Gaming. So in this one, I want to share with you my 1-bar PvP nightblade. This thing is a lot of fun. It hits really hard, has great movement and just mobility, awesome sustain, and can brawl. It's honestly a blast to play, and there's gameplay on the way. If you want to stay up to date with that, I suggest that you do subscribe, and if you like this video, then likes and comments are really appreciated. As with this one, I'm going to go through and show you the skills, the sets, everything you need to know, and also what scribed options there are, because some of them are really good. But don't worry, I'll show non-scribed skills as well. If you like my videos and you want to get exclusive content and much more, including early access, there's details down below where I've got a Patreon you can support there. As for this one though, we are a Khajiit on this nightblade. A Khajiit gives you access to Feline Ambush, which is 12% more crit damage, and it decreases your detection radius by 3 meters in stealth. That last bit is really crucial. Being able to move around in stealth without being pulled out is really nice. So this is a very good thing. You then also get max resources and you get recovery. If you're not a Khajiit, a Dark Elf is a great option, as we are also a vampire and that helps offset those weaknesses. An Orc or a High Elf could also work, but Khajiit or Dark Elf are the kind of best in my opinion. Between the two, they're very balanced. There's no real, this is miles better. If you got one, don't change, it's not worth it. As for the attributes, we have 16 in Magicka and 32 in health, with 16 in stamina. For my Mundus Stone, I used the Lava Mundus. This is the most consistent Mundus to use damage wise, and it's probably like the go-to for most PvP builds, so I would use this in most cases. If you are in no CP Battlegrounds and you do lack sustain for some reason, then you can use the regen Mundus. I don't think you would have an issue. And for those stats, we have 32 in health, as I said, but that's to aim for 30,000 health. As soon as you get around 30,000 health, everything else just split between Magicka and stamina as you see fit. You'll notice that our sustains are also very high, which is a crux of this build, and I'll touch upon that in a moment. And for that weapon damage, when we are buffed, it's almost 5,700, so it goes really high. For the consumables, you have a choice. I personally like to use max health with regens, so something like Spare Hunch or Jaws of Mistral are brilliant. If you find that's a bit too much sustain, then you could use Bewitched Sugar Skulls, which is more max resource, thus more damage, or even more Pack Leader's Bone Broth, which is even more damage. So this is also a great option as well. Me personally, I like Jaws of Mistral. It covers all bases. It's kind of a really good food. And in potion wise, we use Tri-Stat potions. They give us all resources if something goes wrong. And that 47.3 second duration, that's only there because we do actually have our alchemy passives, the medicinal use. So I would recommend getting that as well, because it's really important. As with this, you might have noticed we are a vampire. Being a vampire gives you access to Dark Stalker, helps you move around with no sneak penalty, so you can move around at max speed, which is really helpful. You also get 300 weapon and spell damage coming out of sneak or invis, and you get undeath, which makes you tankier the lower health you are. So this is like a defensive set in a passive. It's really good. So do you need to be a vampire? Yes. Like it's not going to work without being a vampire. Now you're probably going, what scribe skills can we add this patch? What is really worth using? And the answer is there's not much, but what there is really good. For the skills, we use Concealed Weapon, which goes to almost 13,000 when we actually open up on somebody, so it's really high damage. You then have a choice between Merciless Resolve, which is more damage and Spec Bow, or you can go with Killer's Blade. Killer's Blade will give you an execute that hits really hard when they are low health. Spec Bow hits hard all of the time. It will also buff your Concealed Weapon, so it's personal choice. I found more often than not I can actually kill people with Concealed alone, so Merciless Resolve is enough damage to not need Killer's Blade. But if you did want to have that execute because you play in a group and stuff, this does hit very hard. So do consider this. If you find you're not killing people because they can heal through your damage, swap to Killers, see if that makes a difference. But if you are killing people fine, just keep Merciless, it's a better skill. For the next skill we have is Healing Soul. This is a scribe skill and it comes from the scribing system, so you do need access to that. and it replaces our Burst Heal. It heals you for 11,500, it restores 1,000 magic and stamina, thus helping sustain, making it cheaper to use, and our stam, which is awesome, and it's Major Vitality, 12% more healing. What does that actually mean? Well, when we compare it to the Nightblade Healthy Offering, and you could use Shrewd Offering, the heal is very similar, because yes, this is 12,000, but you lose 1,000 health, and the health is like half of that, but you get minor mending, it's only 8%, and we have this already with Oaken Soul. So what ends up happening is that this is a net increase in healing power. And yes, it costs more, but that 1,000 magicka back means this is like 3,800. So there's not much cost between them. This is just a better skill overall, and it's a lot easier to use. So I would recommend using this because you can put this on allies, you can put it on you. You can do this with healthy, but you don't have to mess around with you're then taking damage whilst the ally got the heal. This is just easier to use. We then have Shadowy Disguise, which is a staple for all Nightblades. This lets you basically move around, invis, attack people from stealth, get guaranteed crit buff. It's just really, really good. The other morph is not worth it, so this is like just really OP. I then use Resolving Vigor, which is a heal over time, and it's a minor armor buff. This you could change if you wanted. And then we have Incapacitating Strike. Incapacitating Strike is the best ult for this build, and it hits really, really, really hard. For the Resolving Vigor, you could swap this for Siphoning Strikes if you wish, and you can change one of our sets to be even more damage. But you would have to go and use this as your sustain, which I'll touch upon that in a moment. The other thing to touch upon is champion points. For the blue ones, we are using Fighting Finesse, Master at Arms, Deadly Aim, and Backstabber. Basically, loads of crit damage and loads of single target damage. If you don't attack from people's flank, so behind them, then you need to swap this to Wrathful Strikes, which will give you similar damage, not as much in all honesty, but you can attack from anywhere and this just works. So I would say if you're having issues getting people and just hitting them, swap Backstabber to Wrathful Strikes, it will help. If you need more survival for some reason, then you can obviously slot something like Ironclad or Jordan's Rebuff, that will really help. And then for Weapons Expert, I would kind of ignore, your light attacks don't hit that hard, so I'd kind of leave this. For the red ones, we are using Celerity for movement speed, Survival Instincts, Pain's Refuge, and you have two choices. Sustain by Suffering, but we have a lot of sustain in this build anyway, or Celerity. Celerity is great. What that means is that we can then use Pain's Refuge, Survival Instincts, and Celerity, and then that last one can be like Bastion, more damage to shields, really helpful. So if a DK uses their armor buff, or Sorcerer uses their shield, or the Sigil Order shield, it's just more damage. But you could drop that if you wanted to, and then use Sustain by Suffering instead. I personally would keep the Bastion, I think that's a better use for the CP. And if the green ones, it's Steed's Blessing, Sustain in Shadows, and then whatever you like. The final thing to do is to go through the sets and kind of how it all pairs together. And if you get any questions about the build or what we're doing, then let me know in the comments below. And if you want to see gameplay, there is gameplay coming to the channel, so I would suggest that you do subscribe. And I want to say a massive thanks to everyone at Patreon. If you want to get early access, the details down below. For the sets, we are using Tarnished Nightmare. Previously, I did use Stygian. Stygian is really good, it's just loads of damage, but Tarnished is just vastly better. It pairs really well with the second set, and it's just phenomenal. It's so good. It hits really hard when you come out of stealth. You also get loads of crit chance, which helps you follow up damage because you crit much more, and it applies Saundered, so it's minor breach. It's really overloaded. Really good set. You can then choose to go with double dot poisons, or you can choose to use a glyph. If you use a glyph, Oblivion Glyph is great for a 2H. Double dot poisons are great for just more sustained damage, so it's personal choice. The reason I use a 2H is because of this passive. If you go down to the 2H passives, you've got a passive called Battle Rush. It increases your stamina recovery by 30% when you kill somebody. This is really good. So you could get some really good damage out of this. You also have follow up as well, so that when we heavy attack, our next two ended abilities do damage, but the heavy attacks hit really hard because of the Forceful and the AoE. So I find 2H is more for the sustain, and the AoE cleave on your light and heavy attacks. If you don't want to do that though, and you want to have more damage, it's not much, but it is a bit more, use Tarnished. The Tarnished 2 hammers, so again mauls, Nern hand on the main hand, sharpen on the offhand. This will give you the 2H passives, the dual passive, sorry. Twin blade and blunt. This is the same as heavy weapon, so you get the penetration still. The ruffian will increase that damage attacked when using dual attacks, so that doesn't benefit us at all. Controlled fury does, however, and so does dual expert. And it's this dual expert that gives us more damage than the 2H. It's 6% weapon damage on your offhand, so this does mean you get more damage overall on dual wield. However, it's only 6% of the offhand, so it's not a huge difference. If we look at our tooltips, base is 10,018, with the 2H, it's 9,500. So it's about a 500 difference. It's not a massive difference, but it is a difference. Me personally, I would recommend using the 2H for the sustain. I think it's better. As with the rest of the sets and the loadout, we then have one piece Magma Incarnate for just recoveries. But if you really wanted, you could swap this for Valken Scoria for more penetration, thus more damage. And I would keep this as Reinforced and Triglyph. I then have Wretched Vitality as the second set, Heavy Armor Chest Reinforced with so Prismatic on the glyph. I then have Wretched Vitality Shoulders, Waist. The waist is light armor and the shoulders are medium armor. Everything else is tarnished. I've gone with well fitted on the feet, the legs, the hands, the waist and the shoulders. That is 5 well fitted and 2 reinforced. This is designed to be roly-poly, hitting really hard in and out, but if you do get caught, you have enough base resistances to keep you alive. We then have Wretched Vitality on the neck and the ring, and I've gone with crafted jewellery here simply because it's easier to get. Getting the jewellery for Tarnished Nightblade and then transmuting it can be quite tedious, and jewellery crafting now is a lot cheaper than it used to be. So I would recommend at least purple if you can, and Wretched Vitality is a great option. We then have Oaken Soul, and all of the jewellery is infused weapon damage. I did touch upon earlier that you could swap one of these sets out for something else. So if we go with the Siphoning Strikes version of this build, we could then drop our Wretched Vitality. So with our Wretched Vitality, we have 2,500 stam recovery, an obscene amount of stam recovery, like it's absolutely ridiculous, and 2,000 mag recovery. Our sustain is stupidly high. It means you can roll loads, you can attack loads, it's really friendly. If you want to use the Siphoning Strikes though, and you drop the Wretched Vitality, what you could then do is swap this for a set called Rallying Cry. Rallying Cry is a light armor set, and you might notice I am on the PTS, so I do have access to all of the sets in the game. But Rallying Cry is a light armor set, and it comes from Cyrodiil. And when Battle Spirit is active and you heal yourself, you get 300 weapon and spell damage and 1600 critical resist. This means you're tankier, because you take less crit damage, and you also have loads of damage. This is a really good set. The issue is that you do need to heal yourself, and if you are in a group, you will not benefit as much, because the more there are, the less this benefits you. Allies can give you this, however, so I find you just get this buff for free anyway in group play and solos, at which point Wretched Vitality is better. But if you did want to go with more damage, you could swap to Rallying Cry, which gives you more damage and more defense. The only issue is that that is a light armor set, so you then need to run the neck and the ring with Rallying Cry. You'll then need to run the waist with Rallying Cry, that's 3 there, and the weapons will have to be Rallying Cry. And that gets very expensive very fast. But that's kind of how you could tweak it to get a bit more damage, but you will have to then change one of the skills and you lose a heal over time. Me personally, I think this is the better version, having used both. I think this is more versatile, so I would recommend that you stick to what I've shown. But if you want to maximize that damage a little bit more, that is an alternative option. But that there, guys, is the build. I've gone through everything you need to know, but in case I've missed something, let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to answer. As always though, I want to say a massive thanks to all the support, the likes, the comments, shares and the subscribes. Really helps. And a bigger thank you to everyone at Patreon. If you want to support myself there, get early access, exclusive content and much more, there's details down below. Until the next video, I want to say thanks for watching, take care, and bye!